Hello, SuperCoach Inner Sanctum fans. We're here, grand final week. We're excited. We're all on board. Stuff the real grand final. This is the week, the SuperCoach week of all weeks. Joined by Mike, Mick, and Dan. Mike, how are we? How'd your team go? Good to have you back. Go Eagles, all that stuff.
Yeah, mate. Look, I'm pumped to be back. It's been a few weeks, and I wouldn't have contributed much in previous weeks, given I've been out of contention in all leagues for quite some time. I did log in and see that I scored 24.50 with a team I haven't looked at in 4 weeks, so I was pretty pleased. But did go to the Marvel Stadium on Sunday and saw us ironically get more wins than we did in the 2022 season. So I'm a pumped West Coast supporter.
Nice work. And while you're with you, Mike, give us your Gary and Nathan. Let's just get stuck straight into it.
I'm going to go. My Gary this week is a guy who most of us had from around one. Many of us probably would have jumped off thinking that he's eventually going to drop off, but even his second half of the year was almost comparable to his first half, and that's the Cheezel from North Melbourne. Ended up with 137, I think, on the weekend. And besides one guy, the Bont, I think I have to give the Nathan to the whole Western Bulldogs side. I was sitting in the third row on the wing. They were absolutely pathetic to have effort less with a final spot on the line to be that insipid. You look at some of the scores: McRae 49, Bailey Dow, your mate Dan, only 84. Bailey Smith 77, absolutely terrible. I'm sure a few would have cashed in on the Bont though with their captain, but other than that, the rest of the team was pretty ordinary.
Nice one. He's got a bit of pep in his step for the third time this year. It's been a while. Dan, how you going? How'd your team go? Gary's and Nathan's. Go Blues. They're firing too.
Finals finally showed up, and obviously that was definitely helped by the West Coast Witches hats. They did their job as well by beating the Dogs, but that was after we'd already sealed it. 2-5-4-2 this week for me, so not a bad week. I had quite a few pods that had actually played well this week, and then a couple of them that had pitched up just pretty miserable, ordinary performances. Look, my Gary for this week, I'm going to go with a guy that you were going to bring in and you didn't bring in, but this week he actually turned it on, and that was Harry Himmelberg, scoring 127, I think, in the back line, and that was good. And then my Nathan for this week, well, it's just the second time this guy's done it to us, pulling out late. He's soft as butter, and that is LDU. I hate players that will pull out in the opening bounce, especially for stuff when they go, oh, it's a sore foot. Like, just play. Like, are you going to have you think North's going to have any, major stuff over the next few weeks? You got a frigging holiday of about 6 months. Just play. It's ridiculous. Anyway.
Rightio. We're going to get a sponsorship by whatever that butter company is. For sure.
Thanks.
Right. It's got an L and a U in it. That's pretty good. Mick, I'll throw to you next. I've gone for the two guys whose teams won, but at least your SuperCoach team, I reckon, is up and firing. Even though the Dons were insipid. How'd you go? Gary's, Nathan's?
Yeah, that butter is slightly salty, just like Dan, just quietly. Yeah, I did. I had a 23.91 this weekend, which isn't great, obviously. But I was in 2 prelims, and it was good enough to get me through to one out of those 2 prelims to get me through to a grand final, and it happens to be in my money league too. So up for playing for $400 for first place this week and 100 for second. So it's guaranteed money back for a $50 per person entry league, which is good. So I had my Nathan for sure is Luke Parker, just absolutely insipid again. Ever since I bought him in, he's been rubbish. He hasn't turned up once since I bought him into my team. 53 from him this week, so nearly actually cost me victory in both my leagues actually. But the Gary, I've given it to this bloke, I reckon, 4 times. I know that the Dogs were absolute rubbish on the weekend, as Mike rightly pointed out. But this bloke, though, 162, 21 out of his 32 possessions were contested, and he had 10 tackles as well. He's just an absolute beast. And I think now without without young Nick in the injured the last few weeks, I think he's probably a lock for the Brownlow now, wouldn't you say, boys? With the kind of form he's been in, just
Could give it to him.
Looking at his stats, he's only scored under 100 in SuperCoach once for the whole year, and he's played every game. So very, very impressive. So he's my man.
Probably sums up why my team is no good, because I don't have him. So that's kind of the way it goes. I don't have any Garys. I've given up. I scored 2,000. But when you've got 4 donuts, that's probably note to self: keep some trades. I say that every year, and I run out. And I ran out 4 weeks ago just chasing my tail. So my Nathan is this bloke. Seriously, this bloke is no good at SuperCoach. He's had a shocker of a year. He's been the reason why my team's been so bad. Not Andy Brayshaw early, not everyone else. God. I think me and the guys are going to get together and reminisce about a shit season. But anyway, onwards and upwards we go. We have 3 season reviews. That's the word, to go for the year. I might throw to Mike, who's going to start off with telling us all about the year the West Coast Witches hats, we've called them on this pod, have had in SuperCoach. Over to you, Mike. This should be short as your season has been.
Well, I tell you, if I had been reviewing West Coast last week, this would have lasted for about 15 seconds. But I reckon I'd give them the time in the sun this week, because they were fantastic on Sunday. And as I said, we have won 50% more games this year than we did last year. So the only way is up, regardless that we lost 5 by 100 plus. On the SuperCoach front, there's probably not a lot to be excited about, to be honest. A lot of people had young Ruben Jidby, who served his purpose, I think, in the early part of the season, struck down by a hammy injury, but he ended up, sort of averaging in the mid-60s. Other than that, if you had any West Coast players in your side, you're probably not featuring much in the SuperCoach finals, I would dare say. The star performer has to be your old man, Tim Kelly. He'll win the best and fairest at West Coast by the length of the Flemington Straight. He only averaged 100.7, would you believe? And he's the only West Coast player to average over 100. He did get tagged 3 or 4 times, given he's the only legitimate midfielder in the side. So 100.7 is still pretty good. Given that his average in 2021 was 85, 2022 was 86.5, to jump up to 100.7 in a year where we've only won 3 games, I would think if depending on your Yos and other guys, maybe someone to look at. For those who a bit of a point of difference, Tim Kelly for next year. The other 2, now look at all these shakes of the heads. No Tim Kelly, no Tim Kelly. All right, why don't you try this for size? Old Jeremy McGovern, if he has a preseason, is actually fit, has shown to be a SuperCoach scorer with his intercept contested marks. Only played 8 games, but still averaged 87. This year. And my other Smokey, who's my man, number 8, Elijah Wood, is going to be an absolute star. So he's only played
the actor.
Elijah Wood, mate. Elijah Hewitt. I've never seen a movie of Harry Potter in my life, but I've still gone with Elijah Wood. Elijah Hewitt is going to be a star. He'll be around 240, 250K. I reckon he's one to have a look at next year. Other than that, very little to talk about for the West Coast Witches hats this year.
So we've just lost our Harry Potter supporters and Lord of the Rings supporters in one fell swoop with that one. Gee.
Daniel Radcliffe, the name you're looking for.
I've got my new favourite player's name wrong. I'm doing well.
Elijah Wood, I don't remember him in too many Harry Potter movies, but that's okay. Oh, good. Mick, have you got, since Mick's not getting a team this week, he's going to be a resident pitch-in with any other advice. Any other Eagles golden nuggets you could find for us?
It really is difficult to find any in this team. No offence to the Eagles, but, in SuperCoach this year, they haven't been great. And a guy that I had in in my team, in my draft leagues, I think it was a couple of years ago, is Alex Witherden. And he, looking at his stats this year, he's turned up 8 times, but he's still only averaged, where is he? He's averaged 85.9 for the year. So he's had some really crappy scores, thrown in with those 8 tons. There's a 22 on there, which obviously was injury related, but a 48 or 57. But there's a guy that, he's got a proven ceiling. I think in the past he's had some he started the season at about 560K. So it's surprising to see that he hasn't, become, I think, more of a high scoring defender. I think, what's your take on that, Minnie? Mike, do you think he
I don't rate him, Mick. If I'm to be brutally honest, mate, I think if you put Tommy Barrass and McGovern, Josh Rotham, I think they're going to give more of a go. And if you put him and another guy, can't remember his name escapes me. If they're all firing, I don't think he even gets a game, to be honest. So steer clear.
There you go. The man has spoken.
I'm going to write down on our list for next year, next to West Coast, big fat
Elijah Wood.
A big fat donut. Yeah, that's it. Elijah Wood.
And Daniel
Radcliffe. All right.
Harry Potter.
Mike, thank you for that lovely summation of the Eagles. They've had a SuperCoach season to remember. I think one game they lost. There's only 3,300 points handed out a week, and I think they lost by 1,000 one week or something. That's how good they were going. So, go the Eagles. Dan.
50% improvement.
Yeah, sure. Over to you, Dan, and to have a look at one team that's still in SuperCoach, in finals contention. They've had a heap of good SuperCoach players, I reckon, this year, and that's the Port Adelaide Power.
Yeah, so Port, for being a team that is second place on the ladder, you usually expect teams that are higher up the ladder to have more players that are getting more points. It's just the way that it sort of works. And Port's had 3 real standouts this year, but one of them has taken it to another level, and that's my guy from last week, Zach Butters. He's had a pretty phenomenal season, averaging 111.8. He had that period where he was scoring over 140. I think he had like 3 in a row or something. His 3-round average at the moment is 135, and his 5-round average is 128. He is absolutely killing it. Big teams, 35.6%. So pretty well, a third of the teams have him, and if you're not in finals, that's probably why you don't have him. Then going through, there haven't been a heap of surprises for the team. There's been a couple of really good rookies that have sort of come on. One of those you'd have to say would be Dylan Williams, who's played 19 games in their season out of the full 22 on offer so far. He's gone up about 200,000, so he was a bit of a surprise packet. One that's been a disappointment, Ollie Wines, gone down 140,000. This is a guy that won the Brownlow 2 years ago. And yeah, he's averaged at 83.7 for the year. Just not the guy that he used to be. And then finally, just who we're looking at next year. I think it's Butters. I think it's Rosie. And I think that the question mark has to go on a guy named Dan Houston, who, although he's averaged 106, which puts him up there with the defenders, his ownership at 6.1% is reflective of how much of a roller coaster this guy is. I've had him twice, and every single time you think, oh, great, he's got 110, he scored 99. Cool, he's going to be around that 100 mark, and he pulls out a crap score like he did on the weekend with a 63. You don't want those players that just absolutely can dish up nightmare scores throughout the season.
I reckon well summed up. Mick, your thoughts on the Port Power? Anything else to add?
Dan sounded nicely. Dan Houston in particular was one I was going to mention too, because he started to get heaps of midfield time last year, I think it was, and it was looking like he was going to become more of a dedicated sort of mid/defender, but now he's just a straight out defender, obviously, and hasn't got that dual position status this year. The other one is my boy, who I did mention to be a bit of a smoky for the last few rounds of the year, and that was Travis Boak. And since I mentioned since I mentioned maybe considering bringing him in, even though I didn't, because I didn't think it was a very smart idea, but I thought it was, maybe an out of the box sort of choice. He scored 71, 25, 73, 26. So a guy that has gone from averaging last year 105.4 has averaged 64.9 this year. So he's dropped over 40 points of average in one season, which is just amazing, really. So I don't know why. I don't know what the story is with Boki, but he might be a cheap pickup for next season, but I don't think he's going to, get that form back that he had last year just quietly. So, no good.
Same thing at the guard at Port Adelaide. It's actually quite amazing that you've got Houston, Rosie, and Butters, and there's a huge drop off. And really, from a side that's won so many games, for a lot of players not to really be high scorers.
Well, I think that sort of is a good thing in some senses. If you've got the points being spread, you look at the Bulldogs and it's one bloke or two blokes, and then that's it. So I haven't minded their season. Boke, mate, I think you'll retire. I hope, Inner Sanctum fans. There's a lot of Port people in Inner Sanctum. They love him. If he goes around again, I think he's been sub a few times of late, so probably sums it up. Good work, guys. That just leaves me to talk very quickly about Geelong. MVP by a mile. No dramas here. Tom Stewart averaged 113, third best defender overall. Given Nick Dacos will be a midfielder next year, I'd imagine. He's effectively the second ranked defender. Lock him in next year. I started this year and he got injured in round one. That was his lowest score with 20, and I traded him out and he was only out a week. 15 tons, 3 scores over 150, mate. Locked and loaded. And Geelong's next best score was 92, so sort of sums up their year, and then he had 2 others in the 90s. So Tom Stewart, well done. Struggle streak, you could mention Jeremy Cameron. Jeremy Cameron ended up making 100,000 to start the season, got to 600,000 nearly, and finished on 360. So he lost 150 for the year pretty much, but really lost 250 from where he got to his highest. Not surprising, given he got knocked out by his teammate. Hasn't been the same since. Hawkins lost 180. Danger had an awesome grand final, and then you thought maybe one more year he could go well, but did nothing. Blur. Next year, aside from Tom Stewart, you might go Bailey Smith when we give him some midfield time. You might go Darcy Parish when he comes across and is a nice inside mid. You might go Brodie Grundy when he's rucking for us. Whichever one of those 3 get to us, pick them in your side. We're not going to get all 3, but we should get one of them. I should imagine Darcy Parish. I don't know. He hasn't signed with Essendon. Why hasn't he signed? Because he's going.
He probably thinks he's worth more than he actually is.
Well, we can afford to pay him because all our blokes are retiring.
He's not worth $1 million a year. I don't want us to pay him $1 million a year.
We'll have him. That's fine. We'll have him and Bailey Smith. We don't need Brodie Grundy. He's not that flash.
Just pick up a heap of players that can't hit a target. I like it. It's a good strategy.
Speaking of blokes who can hit a target, and Geelong was so bad last weekend, it didn't really get mentioned, but good old Brian Myers broke the record for the most goal assists in a season ever. He made 140, 50K for you this year, so got his average up to 85. It's not going to get any higher, but just kudos to him because he's about the only Geelong player who made any money this year, really.
Well done to the 0.8% of sides who actually had Brian Myers in their side. Well, kudos to you.
Yeah,
everyone else wouldn't want him because every time they see him kick, they want to vomit. So I think that's the issue.
I love him. At least nearly my favourite now after I hated him last year. Anyway, the other one I think maybe Tanner Bruin. He didn't even get any games at GWS, it feels like, and the first half of the year only averaged just under 60. So his back end he's averaged 83 with more midfield time. I reckon another preseason wouldn't surprise me if his average gets up to the mid-90s next year and then probably pushing up the year after that. So he's 395K though, so you're probably not going to take the punt on him unless he gets a couple of hundreds in the preseason. For me, Tom Stewart, then the rest, sums up the season. I'm out.
Where's Max Holmes? Holmes?
Apologies, yes. Did have him written down as well. My team is called the Max Home Lovers, and ever since I've shown him love, he's been no good. So I'm not calling them that next year. It'll be the Max Holmes. You're okay, and hopefully he dominates. So
for our dedicated Inner Sanctum SuperCoach who have watched us from the day from day
Yes.
one. We did have a conversation before round one, and you picked Maxi Holmes, who has averaged a whopping 79.5 for the season.
Hold on a
and
sec.
I-
Before you keep going, in his first few rounds, Max Holmes had a few hundreds. He got some 80s and 90s, hundreds. I don't know what's happened. I think
He's averaged 79 for the season, and the guy that I chose did his knee in round 3. So we're both that even epitomises how we've gone this year.
Bring on next year. Mick, anything else to add for Geelong? Please say no so we can move on.
Just a quick shout out to Dan's boy, Mitch Duncan. I mean, this bloke, what a champion. He's come in with 3 tongues out of the last 4 games, and he's just waited till the end of the season to do it. So, another smoky pick for your starting 22 next season, Dan, possibly.
I suspect he won't play next year, would be my guess. But anyway, he might go. He's got a contract, so maybe he goes 1 more year. He's not playing this week, that's for sure. Got suspended. There was one other Geelong player that a lot of people had to start the year, and that was Big Asava. And we quickly saw the light and traded him out. So sort of sums up Geelong's year. Beautiful. In the middle of the year, we did our awards for the whole of the SuperCoach. We're not going to do awards for the whole year. I think it's fair to say if we were going to give a SuperCoach MVP for the season, that the Bont would probably be that. We're all nodding. So, again, don't have him on my side, so that probably sums it up.
Or Tim English.
Yes, Tim English. Who ended up with the best average? I didn't even ask. This is how much I care anymore.
Tim English, 129.1.
And the Bont?
28.9.
128.9.
So between the two-man team there, we can say they're joint SuperCoach MVPs for the year. Well done, boys. You can come to our awards ceremony later in the year when the 4 of us catch up for a beer. Bont, Tim English, your seasons are bound to be over by then. Come along. Happy to have you. For sure. On to the last thing for the year, and that is the all-important captain, vice captain, any other advice. I reckon our advice last week, Mike, you weren't here. It was absolutely schmick, spot on. Some good info to get you through your prelim. It worked for Mick. I'll start with you, Mick, then. Any advice? Grand final time. Got to get a good night's sleep the night before, and then what?
Indeed. I don't think my advice actually worked too well this week. My captain choice, I went with Marshall as VC, which started off well, 141, and then I made the decision it was getting too tight, so I subbed out. I traded out Libba and brought in Clayton Oliver and put the C on Clayton Oliver, who ended up with, I think, 84. Sorry. So it didn't actually. Luckily, didn't cost me victory in the end because the bloke I was playing against had his captain on, Petrarca. He only scored about 10 or 15 more. But looking at this week, so the first game of the week is...
Collingwood versus the bye, mate. Collingwood versus the bye.
Collingwood versus the bye. So the Collingwood will probably smash us by about 500 points. I think maybe Marshall again on the Saturday afternoon against Brisbane is looking like a really good option again into the good thing is that GWS have the last game of the season, so all the Nick Madden owners out there are going to be able to loophole their vice captain quite easily. So if Marshall or whoever you choose, maybe Dunkley, who's a little bit out of form lately, Josh Lockie Neal in that Brisbane game, score really well, then you've got plenty of options on leading into the Sunday to loophole or to stick your captain on one of the Melbourne boys, or even someone maybe if you got like a Nick Newman you brought into your team, he's interesting choice again for captains, something a bit out of the box.
I'll give you $50, Mick, if you chuck the C on Nick Newman in a grand final in SuperCoach.
I don't have him, but if I did,
I do owe you $50 for the prize for the entry fee for the same comp, so I'll hand that over anyway.
If I was super desperate and I knew that was my only option, then I might have to think about it. But no.
Well, I last week I said there's one bloke and it's Rowan Marshall. Given Geelong have no ruckman, and when he scared 140 odd, and you didn't take that. Well, Mick, serves you right for losing one.
It was that, and have a donut on the field, and the donut would have cost me. It would have actually cost me the win. I had to do it.
That's all right then. So this week Geelong, no ruckman again, less ruckman, Some are retiring now. They were absolutely insipid in the middle. It was so frustrating. So Tim English should score 180 this week. So if you can get the vice captain for the Saturday night, I would lock that in. Nothing. I wouldn't even look anywhere else. We get smashed in the middle. And that is why, because we have no ruckman whatsoever. Dan, your thoughts for the weekend coming up, grand final?
Yeah, look, I think we've sort of hit the nail on the head there. I think Tim English, as we were saying before, averaged the most out of any other player. Up against no ruck, he's probably going to dominate. But there's a couple of others that are playing on that Sunday. You know, Richmond's done and dusted for the season. They got nothing to play for. Port Adelaide's playing for potentially second spot. At that point, it's probably going to be already sewn up by Brisbane if they beat St Kilda. So there's a few little sort of things just to watch throughout the weekend. And I think that if there's any sort of hint of, sort of resting players for some of those teams that are guaranteed their spots, keep an eye out for that. I don't think there's anyone really that should be doing that. And then just any other sort of, I don't know, iffy sort of team list stuff where if they've sort of been carrying an niggly sort of injury, they may not even get a run in this final game. It'll be interesting to see how things go. I'm very interested to see what happens on Friday night with Essendon and see if they bounce back. You might remember Ed Scott famously had a thing with North Melbourne where they would get absolutely smashed and then the next week they'd get up and win. I wonder whether they can roller coaster it like the days of old at North and they can get up. You heard it here first.
Jesus Christ.
We went from 102 deficit to a win, so anything could happen, I think.
It's possible.
I will say that I reckon in past, I've been in a few grand finals previous years, not this year, obviously, and there's always late changes. There's always feels like if you've got a trade or two left and you get the teams to Thursday night, I would still hold off and just wait until final teams are announced. And then if a final team's announced and you want to make that trade, then you go for it. So that'd be my only advice for those still left as well. That was my Mitch Duncan one from 10 years ago. It was a last-minute trade on a Saturday night. Got me the victory. Mike, I asked you, any advice? Grand final weekend.
I think if you're still in it, you've got to be looking to do your loophole Saturday night. You've mentioned Tim English, who should score heavily, but up against a pretty weak midfield. You watch with the season on the line. He was exceptional on Sunday. You watch the Bont absolutely go berserk. So it's a flip of the coin job for me as to who's the VC. You've got a few options in case they don't go on the Sunday with Port still playing. A Rosie or a Butters potentially. But that's where I'd be putting perhaps even an Oliver after the tag job. Expect him to go a bit bananas if you've got him in your side on Sunday. Other than that, good luck to all those who are lucky to still be in it, and looking forward to perhaps a slightly improved performance from myself and our team that will be lodging next year in SuperCoach 2024.
That's it. I think that maybe just check if your opponent, assuming that most people have got English and Bond who are still in. So if you're losing by a few, then your opponent's got the VC on one. You might just go the VC on the other and hope that the Bond can outscore English or vice versa. Agree, I'm looking forward to next year. I'm picking the Bond. If I don't have the Bond at the start of next year, I'm out of this podcast. That's for sure. I want to have him all year and love him instead of hating him. He doesn't usually score well against Geelong, by the way, but I'm sure he will on the weekend. Last thoughts, Mick, for the year. It's been a great year. Your last thought.
Last thoughts. Well, after Essendon's performance on the weekend, I was up and about and full of piss and wind after we went I think 7-4 for the first half of the season, and now we're I think 4-8 for the last half or something like that, something ridiculous. And after your team gets pumped by 126 points, when many teams in a genuine rebuild. But our boys were looking finals bound 3 months ago, and now we're just battling for the top 12, just like the other three teams. So I'm very disappointed as an Essendon fan, but hopeful that I can get the win this weekend in SuperCoach, at least one league out of the four that I'm in. It'll be my first grand final win in about 6 years, I think. So it'll be it's a long time coming.
One more finals than Essendon, mate. Well done, Mick. Thanks for joining us this
Yeah.
year, Dan. Last words, we'll leave it with you. Any rage trades to finish off? Any final
Oh,
excitement?
look, if I had trades left, Scott, it would be Callum Mills or Luke Parker. Both of those duds can get out. But just in the way that Essendon's season's gone from high to low, Carlton's season's gone from low to high. So, look, I'm happy. It's I may not be in SuperCoach finals, but my team is finally playing finals. It's been 10 years.
I accidentally pressed stop record about 30 seconds ago. Sorry, mate. So we just missed all that. What was that? Sorry. No, it's been good fun. For those of you who had stuck with us and watched a few episodes here and there, keep an eye out for us next year. We'll retool, we'll rejig. It's going to be bigger and better, and well, it mightn't be bigger or better, but it'll be something, that's for sure. Thanks for joining us. Check out the Inner Sanctum's SuperCoach page and website and all that. Love your work. Thanks, everyone.